Everybody. Hi. Hannah and Reagan and Patrick from the Acreless Homestead. We are here in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at the Modern Homesteading Conference. This is our second year here, and we're so excited to learn all weekend from all these different speakers about different subjects. So far, my favorite has been learning about obviously homesteading on a small scale in the backyard. My favorite was going to see the baby chicks. Yeah. Patrick, do you have a favorite?
Seeing my daughter here for the first time, realizing that she's going to have a better understanding of all the things mommy's doing or how she can hunt.
Yeah, we've got some pretty exciting stuff that we're planning to add to the homestead. We're going to keep going. Oh my gosh, we've learned so much. It's always such a great event, and I'm always so excited to come out, learn as much as I can, and then implement in the coming year. Honestly, I think my favorite class that I went to throughout the whole weekend, so they have it structured where every, hour and a half, there's a slew of different kinds of lectures that you can go to. So, and they're all in different buildings. So you can kind of hop from one to the other. If you're interested in multiple ones, or if you go with somebody else, you can kind of divide and conquer. But the first lecture that I went to was Cassidy Cornell, and she was talking about on a small scale homestead. So she's got an acre. And so us being on a quarter acre, I was able to actually get a lot of what she was teaching. And a lot of it was applicable to our scale. So, everybody that comes to these events, you have everyone from, like us on a very small scale with, in a neighborhood, all the way to people who have 100 acres. So it's, I imagine, hard to find content for everyone that, everybody would be interested. But I think that the Modern Homesteading Conference does a really good job of that. So we got a couple of different ideas as far as livestock that we could incorporate into our homestead from that lecture. So one that we'd been considering were rabbits. And we did end up going to a rabbit butchering demo because we had talked about raising them for meat before. And my big thing is can I bring myself to butcher a rabbit? They're so cute. And obviously we wouldn't name them or anything, but I didn't even know if I could stomach that. So I did take that class with Daniel Salatin, who is well known for raising rabbits his entire life. His dad is Joel Salatin, who is of course a legend. So, I said to my friends, I didn't cry and I didn't throw up. So I think that's a good start. I do have a friend locally who raises them for me. And so I think that may be the next step for me, is going with her on a butchering day and seeing if I can actually do it too. I know it sounds gruesome, but part of this is kind of learning where our food comes from, right? So it doesn't just show up on your plate. And so if you have food on your plate, think a farmer. One thing that I hadn't considered before were quail. And that was one of the things that Cassidy brought up in her lecture, that quail are very quiet. They take up a little amount of space. The males are really the only ones that make any sound. So if you're in a neighborhood, she was saying that they kind of sound more like a wild bird. So, if you're even in an HOA, she was saying that, maybe your neighbors would not even notice that you're raising them there. So that was something to consider. And we did find a portable chicken coop that you can run along your lawn. And so that's something that we're considering for maybe the future, because chicken is, we know chicken. We know that we like it. It's the other thing about rabbits, we would want to, I've had rabbit before, but in a soup, and is it, they say it's white meat, but is it as versatile as chicken? So these are all the questions that we need answered before that we can really dive into that. At the very least, though, I do think that I would like rabbits for just the manure. Their manure is really valuable for the garden because it's a cold manure. And so you can put it right on the garden. So whereas chicken manure is hot manure, you have to compost it before you could put it onto the garden, or else it might burn your plants. I was learning this weekend too that they like a lot of the more woody vegetables that, I throw all my scraps to the chickens. Anytime I'm like pruning tomatoes, or if there's just any produce that's I'm not going to eat, there's a worm in it or something like that, I always throw that to the chickens. But depending on what it is, especially if I'm like recently we just cleared out all of our beds to get them ready for the summer. And I pulled out a bunch of full plants. So like a full tomato plant, like the stem and everything, threw it to the chickens. And they don't really eat the stems because it's a little woody for them. And so I was learning this weekend too that, rabbits would eat that. So it may help to kind of close some of the loops that we have on the homestead. And plus, like I said, they're so cute. And those take up very little space. So that's, another big draw for us is that they're perfectly happy along with the quail to be in like a rabbit hutch that could kind of like go alongside the house. They're very quiet, so neighbors are not going to complain. But anyway, so learned a lot from Cassidy. My daughter ended up spending a ton of time with her at the McMurray Hatchery booth because they had cute little baby chicks there. Sally Fallon Morrell from the Weston A. Price Foundation, who in my mind is like a total legend. So I'm like, a little fangirling here, that we got to even like meet her in person, shake her hand, and like ask questions. It's so cool. But so we went to her lecture on day 2, and she was kind of talking a little bit about like what is the Weston A. Price Foundation, what was the research that Dr. Price discovered, and the importance of ancestral diets. And then as soon as she was about to get into like, okay, well, what is an ancestral diet, which, I have her book, so I've read about her before I know the history, but I was really looking forward to my husband, who was there with me, learning more about that research. But the power went out when she was doing that presentation. So all good. We ended up doing like a Q&A, and everyone just kind of like was kind of huddled around, which was cool too, because we got to ask a lot more questions than I think we would have had she had gone through the whole presentation. There just wouldn't have been a ton of time. But everybody got to ask every question that they, had about it, which was great. Of course, the talk from Joel Salatin was amazing. I always enjoy his work. I've read a lot of his books. And I just enjoy the way that he talks about simple concepts, but he's so smart, and the way that he delivers the message is so eloquent, and his vocabulary is so impressive. So it's just entertaining. I listened to a lecture from Ann Briggs from Ann of All Trades. Really liked her lecture about mushrooms, and that was another thing that kind of have had on my goal list because it doesn't take as much space. I love mushrooms, and a lot of them have lots of health benefits, so I'm really excited to kind of get into that. So I'm excited to jump into that because you don't really need much. I went to a little bit of a talk on elderberry. That was cool. I like that. I had no idea there were so many different varieties of elderberry. I went to a soap making demo, which is not something that I really had on my goal list to learn about this coming year, but I do have, so I got a bunch of fat from our butcher, and I haven't rendered it down yet. I'm kind of putting that off because I'm told that it just smells up your whole house. And then the lady next to me at the soap demo was, I was telling her that, and she was like, oh yeah, just do it outside. So I might try that and make soap with it. Oh, we went to a really great talk on, the title of it was Taking Back Your Table, The Real Power of Choosing Organic. It's Pete Strayer from the Azure Standard company, and I'm a longtime customer of them, so I love everything that they stand for. I love their products. I've listened to him on podcasts before. He's just a great public speaker just in general. It wasn't what you would think with that title. It was more of like, okay, we're nourishing our bodies, but yes, but we also want to nourish our minds and our souls. And like, who are we surrounding ourselves by? What are the messages that we're telling ourselves? Like, what you know, habits as far as like eating at the dinner table every night with our family, you know, and sharing gratitude, like how do those actually affect our health too? I really liked the message there, and totally agree with it. Natural Pest Management by Joe Lample. I'm less familiar with his work, but really liked his talk. And he went through a lot of just like different tips to keep pests at bay, but then also feeding your ecosystem too. So like, if you can, not raking up leaves, because that's where a lot of bugs overwinter. And one of the bigger things that I got from that talk was he was talking about you know, not treating with pesticides and like chemicals and things like that. And not only for, of course, your garden, like, you know, why would you spray anything on your garden? That like, the whole reason we're doing this is to grow healthier food, obviously. But then further than that, like if you're spraying, say, your lawn, and there's, you know, grubs in the lawn that then local birds are eating, that's poisoning them. So he had a fact that it was 70,000, I think the number was 70,000 songbirds a year are dying because of that, because they're eating insects that died from pesticides. I never even thought of that before, and that you can't just have like just your garden that's organic. Like, it's a whole thing and everything affects everything. Which seems like, yeah, duh, but then, I don't know, it just wasn't, it didn't occur to me. So that's something that I definitely want to take back to our homestead. But looking forward to next year. So if you guys are interested, I will put the link in the notes, because Temple Grandin is going to be the keynote speaker, which I am so excited about. You know, reading a lot of her work and reading about her, so that, you know, it's going to be very special. That is June 25th to 27th of 2027. Hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification for more videos like this to follow along with our adventures and keep growing. Thanks for joining us.